5 years after taking off on Xbox One and PlayStation 4, Ace Combat has landed on Nintendo Switch. I knew going into this one that I enjoyed Ace Combat 7. In fact, I'd say that overall, it's probably my favorite game in that series. When the first gameplay was revealed of the Switch version, I was surprised how close it looked to my memories of playing the original release. Now that I've got the game in hand, I can say this is right up there as one of the Switch's absolute best ports. Ace Combat 7: Skies Unknown is an aerial combat sim that rides the line nicely between hardcore simulation and more arcade-style gameplay. Right from the start of the game, you'll be given the option to choose between novice and expert control setups. The novice setup will allow the left analog stick to both adjust pitch and turn the plane left and right. This results in a very arcade-like experience. Think all-range mode from Star Fox 64. Expert mode, on the other hand, requires you to actually tilt your plane left and right and handles more like an actual airplane, though it's still certainly not a hardcore simulation. It gives more precise controls for those who are more familiar with aerial combat games, and it's definitely my preferred way to play for this particular title. Missions play out in a few general patterns. You either need to destroy specific targets, defend an objective, or just cause enough damage to get your score beyond a certain threshold. Now and then, a boss fight will shake up the encounter, but in general, the depth of Ace Combat 7 is found in customizing and mastering your aircraft. Completing missions earns you points that can be redeemed for parts, weapons, and even entirely new fighter jets. Each jet and its components have their own stats, and may be more suited for one type of mission than another. For example, certain setups may be more conducive to destroying large land-based targets, while others might be more fit for weaving through airborne combat. The biggest shakeup in gameplay for the series in this entry is the use of clouds as an actual gameplay mechanic. Clouds in Ace Combat 7 are beautifully rendered as complex volumetric objects. They not only look great, but they also directly interact with your aircraft and weapons. They not only affect your physical visibility, they also make locking onto enemies and missile tracking less reliable. However, you can't simply hide in them forever, as moisture will slowly cause ice to form, affecting the performance of your aircraft. Low-hanging clouds can also hinder your ability to make out changes in terrain. As a result, they simultaneously make great cover, while also increasing the odds that unskilled pilots will simply crash into a mountain. The Switch port of Ace Combat 7 is an impressive accomplishment. While one might initially think that a flight combat game might make for an easy port, as level of detail could be adjusted with minimal effect to gameplay, Ace Combat 7's unique mechanics make that impossible. Most importantly, those clouds can't simply be replaced with flat billboards, as would often be the case. Their existence as real 3D volumes is a crucial gameplay mechanic. Terrain draw distance also can't really be pulled back, as the player needs to be able to look out and survey the entire battlefield at once. Luckily, both of these elements have been excellently preserved. Where we do see cutbacks is in things like shadow quality, pop-in on near-camera detail such as trees, and of course, frame rate. The Switch version runs at 720p docked and about 540p in handheld mode. Both are treated with what looks like a simple pass of FXAA, a post-process anti-aliasing solution. It doesn't provide the most thorough coverage, but it also doesn't really produce any artifacts of its own, unlike other methods. I'll also note that 720p is the same resolution as the original Xbox One release. Given that context, then, that's quite an accomplishment for the Switch. Frame rate has been dropped to 30 FPS from the target of 60 on other platforms, but once again, to be fair, the Xbox One and PS4 originals both struggled to hit 60 frames per second, and spent a lot of time in the 40 FPS range. So this makes sense. In my experience, the frame rate held up nearly perfectly in actual gameplay, and I only experienced more noticeable drops in replays, where I suspect the graphical settings have been raised somewhat. This is an extremely impressive port of an excellent flight combat game. I was surprised when this was announced for Switch, but I have absolutely loved every moment of revisiting it. The unique mechanics of Ace Combat 7 are still a thrill 5 years after its original release, and they have been translated effectively here. Throw in an over-the-top but engaging story, and a fantastic soundtrack, and you've got something special. Mission structure can get a little repetitive by the late game, but plenty of unlocks keep the experience pretty fresh the whole way through. Given the general lack of many Ace Combat games on Nintendo platforms, I'll also note that you by no means need to have played the rest of the series to enjoy this one. This is an easy recommendation and a great late generation addition to any list of remarkable Switch ports. This video was made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Did you know that Nintendo World Report is funded directly by fans like you? When you support Nintendo World Report on Patreon, you get immediate access to multiple exclusive podcasts every month, exclusive Discord channels, an early look at select content, and more, all for as little as $1 a month. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.